Taste the Mediterranean through March 19th at Whole Foods Market. Save on animal welfare certified bone and beef short ribs, sustainable wild-caught sockeye salmon, and more. Find sales on Parmigiano Reggiano, charcuterie and ground lamb. Grab an olive boule bread from the bakery. Plus, wines from the Mediterranean start at just $8.99. Taste the Mediterranean now at Whole Foods Market. Must be 21 plus. Please drink responsibly.
Today on City Cast Boise, whether you're meeting a friend, taking a break, or trying to get some work done, a good coffee shop is more than just a place to grab some caffeine. Today, the City Cast Boise crew has coffee shop recommendations for whatever vibe you're seeking in the Treasure Valley. It's Thursday, March 7th. I'm Nick Kwa, and this is what Boise's talking about. I'm a huge fan of coffee shops. Staple of any community, essential meeting places, employer of the masses, purveyor of good smells, all that kind of things. But before we dive into, sort of your coffee shop philosophy, let's call it, what is your order? Like, what's your go-to when you show up to any spot? Blake, you want to go first?
Yeah, okay. Oftentimes, I will go for just like kind of straight essential staple oat milk latte.
Oh.
And often there are like 2 months out of the year, and then like the dead of winter when I'll get it hot, but most of the time I like it iced. And then maybe with some sort of flavor if I know that the place that I'm going to needs the extra boost of flavor.
Right.
Because oftentimes oat milk lattes just are like dead and flat, but it's also like it's a tried and true. Like it's a go-to, I can trust it relatively consistently.
Speaking as a person who like occasionally likes a gas station coffee, I totally understand the sweetener situation. Evelyn, like you seem like to me, I'm assuming you're a black coffee person. Am I right? Am I wrong? No?
No, absolutely not. I have a huge sweet tooth.
You just seem really hardcore to me. So
yeah, I keep it basic. We'll do a classic caramel latte or a classic vanilla latte, always iced.
Mm-hmm.
But during this time of year, if I am craving a hot drink, I will get a hot, dirty chai.
I assume dirty chai is a chai with a shot of espresso in it?
Yeah, two or three shots in there for me.
Ooh, that's too much energy for me.
That's a lot of caffeine.
I actually know someone who's a cold brew person straight through the winter, and shout out to that guy.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I'm here for that too. I love a classic cold brew.
Absolutely. So I personally find coffee shops like essential pieces of any community. It's a place for me. It's a reason for me to leave my work table for a while. I have not smoked for a long time, but I used to, really treasure my smoke breaks. The walk to the coffee shop has really sort of taken that place for me. And, that's kind of informing the way I think about the question of what makes a good coffee shop. I'm curious, Evelyn, around where you are, what do you sort of look for in a coffee shop?
I think for me, what makes a good coffee shop is it serves a bigger purpose of bringing community together. This is a place where you want to bring your best friends, sit down, catch up. But it also is a place where you're like, okay, I need to go in here and I need to be productive and I need to get stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's what makes a good coffee shop is that I know I'm going to get a good drink here and maybe a good pastry here, hopefully. And I get to do what I need to do, whether it's I'm with my besties or I need to get my work done.
So workplace meets living room meets common room.
I want it all. Yeah.
Blake, what's your go-to spot?
I guess the Flying M, which we've talked about many times on the podcast before. The Flying M in Boise, I've just been, going there for years, ever since I moved here. And so if I just quick, put me on the spot of oh, I'm just going to go meet a friend for a coffee, I'm probably going to go to the Flying M. Just because I know, exactly what you're going to get. It's going to be cheerful. I feel like oftentimes you can find other kind of cooler coffee shops almost that are trying to be cooler.
Sure.
But Flying M is just tried and true.
I love that you said Flying M because Nick, you asking me what makes a good coffee shop, immediately I think it's Flying M because you have one in Caldwell, you have one in Nampa, you have one in Boise. Hello, who else is doing that?
Yeah.
I feel like I compare everyone to Flying M.
And they're the most kind of adapted to their locales, to their communities. They feel very different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think of Flying M as an institution, really. Like, it's one of the first places that I sort of patroned when I first started coming to Boise, well before I moved here. For me, at least, it's always such a nice slice of, like, the young people community here, which is,
Totally.
it's kind of hard to see it visibly a little bit in various pockets of Boise. What's your sort of earliest memory of going to Flying M? Do you remember?
So in high school, me and my friends, we were like, what is there to do?
Is this in Caldwell?
There wasn't one in Caldwell at the time yet. So we would spend our weekends, our Friday nights going to the Flying M in Nampa. And we would get our little coffees, take our aesthetic Tumblr photos. And then we noticed that they would like bring in live bands and start doing shows there. And so we would go and watch live music. And I remember we met some band and we're like, oh, we're so excited. Little high schoolers taking our photos. And
That's awesome.
from there on, yeah, Flying M just became a big part of our friend group. And yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and the one in Nampa is a converted, like, garage, right? Is that the space?
Yes. Yes. Their space is everything.
Oh, man, beautiful. Blake, do you have an earliest memory?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned the one in Nampa because I went to the College of Idaho for a year. And so I lived in Caldwell. And at that time, I mean, the Caldwell Flying M was going to open like 2 years later. So I was still a ways out. And so, yeah, it was like a big, like some weeknight, like everybody got together. I didn't have a car at the time. A bunch of my friends and I didn't have cars. And so we'd all kind of migrate into Nampa to do a bunch of homework at the Nampa Flying M. Classic, just like here. But I do remember going to the downtown Boise one at some point in high school. It was here for like a convention for something or other. And for some reason, one of the places that I latched onto as a high schooler in Boise, because I think it's so public or just like public facing, is Goldie's.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Which I have a family friend who makes fun of me for I called it Gordy's for years. I don't know why. I just called it Gordy's. I was just wrong.
Another big institution, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But one day, it was just like closed for some reason. And so I just kind of like wandered around and yeah, went to the M. And I think like sophomore or junior year of high school. I remember that. And just like being a little baby gay that wasn't out yet from like a farm town, I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
this is so overstimulating, but also great. Like, yeah, it was exciting.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Goldie's, it's fun that you link the two things together because, like, Goldie's, a diner, has a coffee shop attached to it. But in my mind, when I sort of think about, like, the image of, like, Boise, like, it's very much together.
Totally.
My wife is from Boise. She grew up here, and the two places go hand in hand in many senses. I also think a lot about Dawson Taylor as like another sort of long time like Boise institution. The one on 8th Street has gotten a revamp a couple of years ago. It looks beautiful now. It's on my morning walk down when I walk down to the co-working space. And that's sort of personally the coffee shop that I end up patroning the most. But I have really warm memories of like the old Dawson Taylor when it's a little dark inside.
Yeah, I've heard so many people, like my boyfriend, for example, actually like talks about it quite frequently of like, I can't believe they changed Dawson, which like a lot of people love it, I know, but I know that a lot of people also really miss that grunge, like the stickiness of it. Yeah.
And, when I'm thinking about the sort of quote unquote, like older guard of the coffee shops, I also think about Java, which there's one downtown.
Totally.
There's one on 13th Street. Is there any other Javas that I'm missing out here?
Not here, but yeah, Java also very important to me because it's like the only kind of alternative coffee shop in Twin Falls. And so that was like the place that I grew up going to.
So when I was working and living in Twin Falls, I lived right next to one of the Javas, and I actually had no idea that there was one in Boise. But I spent a lot of time at the Java in Twin Falls. And so when I returned back to the Treasure Valley, and I was like, oh, there's a Java here. And there was one in Sun Valley too. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
That's where it originated. Yeah.
Oh, it originated in Sun Valley. I did not know that. So Boise's been a growing city for a couple of years now, and there's like a really sort of flowering small business economy, and coffee shop the coffee shop sector is a big part of that. And we've been seeing the rise of this sort of new wave, in my head at least, they're a new wave, sort of guard of coffee shops popping up. I'm a huge fan of Push and Pour. I think they have multiple locations. They started out in Garden City, if I'm not mistaken, and they have a spot in the sort of converted gas station up on a bench right now, which I really love spending time there. In your mind, do you like what does this new wave of coffee shops bring to Boise relative to the Flying M's, the Javas? Like, it feels a little different. It feels like there's something happening here, and like I'm wondering if you could sort of like sort of walk me through your emotional relationship with this new guard of coffee shops.
Yeah, I think of it as honestly, it fills a lot of cups that need to be filled in our community.
See what you did there.
Yeah, and so I think I honestly think a lot of it is co-working space. I think that I mean, literally look around, what places can you go and for under $10 get, a place to work, a social interaction, like talk to a stranger, get some food.
Because a cup of coffee is also rent to some extent.
Yeah, and so feel like you're part of the community, and Wi-Fi, so like it's literally coffee shops, like that's it. And so I think that there's enough room in the market for lots of different takes on it. That said, I think that I personally prefer a lot of like the old guard, just because I love to patron like some of the newer ones as well. It's interesting. I feel like push and pour, I can't actually decide which side of that they're on.
They're kind of in between. I agree, but in my mind, I tend to class them as new
because they have the skater edge of
Yes.
them, which makes me think old guard. So I think that a lot of it really does come down to this country just like needs third spaces.
Could you quickly define like third space for me? Because that's such a really, really important concept when talking about a coffee shop.
It's a literal space, physical space in your community that you can go to, in which it's not your home and it's not your workplace, and you, fingers crossed, don't have to pay to be there.
Right.
It's essentially not a business that you're patroning, but it's just a place where you can go to spend time with people.
These days, most of the time we associate it with coffee shops, but it should be a library, it should be a park, it should be a lot more spaces like this. Yes, absolutely.
Libraries for sure, and also I do think that parks, but it's often kind of frowned upon socially to like just walk up and talk to strangers in a park. But I think that that's where dog parks come in, and so I think that that's where Boise also really shines. But yeah, that's my understanding of a third space.
We need something like a ring finger system for people who are just down to chat.
Yeah, honestly.
Big fan of that concept in general. Evelyn, like how often do you work out at coffee shops?
I actually try and schedule twice a week or once a week for sure. I love working at coffee shops and I try to switch it up. I'll work at Jack Henry's in Caldwell. I'll work at Flying M Caldwell, Flying M Nampa. And then if I am feeling adventurous and I want to make my way to Boise, I actually love working at Form and Function in Boise.
Yeah, they have a wonderful workspace. They got the second floor and the bottom area, and the views are quite nice.
That's one thing I look for in a coffee shop when I'm like, I need to get work done. I feel like here in Boise in the Treasure Valley, we do have that luxury of being able to have coffee shops that have those bigger spaces. Like Flying M Nampa is ginormous. It's so
huge.
hard to find a coffee shop that size in like a huge city. They're tiny. Everybody's bunched up next to each other.
Yeah.
Me personally, I don't like that. I like having my little space and being in a bigger setting. And so to be able to find a coffee shop that is kind of expanded and I'm not sitting immediately close to someone, that's just my style. But respect to those people who like being right next to others.
Oh yeah. I mean, the thing I like about the Nampa Flying M is that it feels like a mess hall, right? It's huge. It feels like a cafeteria. Like there is this sort of like communion vibe almost. But I think there's a sense in which the design of the coffee shop does communicate whether it like wants you to stay a little longer or like, so I'm thinking about the sort of downtown Dawson Taylor, for example. There is a long row table with plug points, and it suggests like, hey, set up work here, and it's totally fine. And it, feels safe to do that, where there are some sort of in-between designs, like thinking about the district, multiple tables spread out across the sort of floor, and it's like, it is for hanging out, but is it really for working? And it feels like too in between for me to feel comfortable setting up shop there for too long. Let me sort of pose this question. Evelyn, let's say you want to have a career change, love your City Cast, but let's say you want to open up a coffee shop. Like, what is the ideal Evelyn coffee shop here?
Oh, that is such a good question. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to get so lucky and I'm going to find this space that is ginormous. And so it's easy to split up because if you want to be productive, there is that section where it's like, this is designated to do those work meetings, get your work done, be productive, do whatever you want. And then this area over here, if you want to feel social, if you want to do whatever you're doing, bring your friends, your family, go on a date.
So like a couch area versus like a work space area.
Yes, yeah. So we'll be sure to have that there. We have our house-made syrups.
Hell yeah.
Oh, that's a big thing for you.
That is a big plus. Local coffee shops who have their house-made syrups, amazing. I think those are like key factors for me.
What is the music vibe of your ideal coffee shop here?
Honestly, just a bunch of house music, chaotic house music bumping in the coffee shop.
Incredible. Blake, what's your, you just got $1 million grant from the city. Open up the coffee empire of your dreams. What's the play?
I think that what's likely to happen is that it slowly morphs from a coffee shop into a bakery.
Ooh, yes, please. I love it.
That's pretty much what happens.
Sort of a fluid business in that sense.
Yes, yeah. And maybe there's a bookshop. I don't know. We'll see. But I think that one, we have high ceilings, but it doesn't feel cold. And then the hallmark of it, which again, like if anybody just finds out this code, they're just going to like, I don't know, just be the most successful coffee shop, is like you just have to find people who are really good at it, who are really good at making coffee, and just like pay them really well. Get them everything that they need and then just get out of their way, and it's going to be beautiful. And then that makes people want to show up, and that makes people want to kind of contribute to that culture. So there's a bakery element. I personally don't know if in my dream coffee shop there is a live music element.
I would agree with that.
So, for example, Necker downtown has occasional like poetry readings or like live music that are set off events. They're after closing hours. You have to know about it to go. I prefer that.
Which is also cool because it like expands the use of the space, right? And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I prefer that. Although I do like in the community, I want to have options of like going to like a trivia night or, something like that at a coffee shop. But that's not what I want in my spot.
Right. The sort of 9 to 9 hours. Let's keep it straightforward here.
That's the other thing, especially here in Boise, open late, which I know paying for staffing. Ugh.
It's only Flying M that I think does it. At least here in Boise. Boy, I do love the late night coffee shops.
I feel like I described a club for mine.
Yeah, you did.
Espresso martinis everywhere, house music. Yep.
Listen, it's your coffee shop. I love the notion of combination coffee shops, the sort of combination coffee shop bookstore. It's kind of the perfect Pizza Hut Taco Bell situation.
Absolutely.
And this also reminds me of Bikes and Beans up over at the bench. It's a bike shop and a coffee shop in theory. Yeah, I love those sort of hybrid spaces, and that would probably be what I would do. A coffee shop and a let's think of something random here, like a hair salon,
Like a running store?
Let's go with that. I wish you the best of luck with the creation of your coffee empires. Should you aspire to become a small business owner in the future?
Yeah, thanks. Donors pull through. Let us know.
That's all for today here on City Cast Boise. Tell your favorite barista about us, and be sure to subscribe to our free Hey Boise newsletter for more coffee shop happenings. We'll be back tomorrow with more local stories from around the city. See you then.